Hey everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of Sales on Record. In the last three episodes, we had a lot to discuss, especially when it came to, building a sales team, improving sales performance. We did a couple of webinars with some of our friends, and so in this specific episode, I wanted it to be a little different. So what we did was we went to Google and we basically searched for all the questions that people were asking about managing a sales team, or basically a sales manager or a sales leader might ask about managing a sales team. I took some of these questions up, and basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Sachin. As usual, Sachin is with us, so he our go-to guy about sales. So I'll go and ask him about these questions, and we'll figure out a way to answer it in a way that is helpful for not only the people who are listening, but anybody who might be searching for such answers. So, Sachin, let's like how we usually do, right? I have these 10 questions with me. I'm going to ask you that. Some of them are really good ones. Some of them are usually like pretty usual. People
Mm,
tend to ask that, especially if they're running a new team. But
mm.
that's the whole format of this specific episode. Uh, so
Yeah, I'm
let
also
me.
trying to figure out. So I'll also learn a few things probably today in terms of these questions and see how it goes. And would love to hear from some of our audience as well. And put that once we put these up questions as videos, snippets of videos, you are free to feel free to comment on them and share your insights or your kind of experience on these questions as well.
Got it. So I'm going to do two things. I have the direct question that they asked, and based on the different answers that are there on the web, I've understood what it actually means and who are the type of people asking. So I'm going to add both of them for you, so that
Mm,
we have clarity on what we are asking. Right. So I'll just start. The first question. Right.
mhm,
The question is pretty vague. It's
mhm,
asking, what does it mean to manage a sales team, right? Uh,
mhm,
the background behind this is basically the type of people who are asking, at least from my research, what I understood from the answers that were there on various websites for this question was, it's usually for a new salesperson, not a salesperson, a old salesperson, a veteran salesperson who became a manager, and now they are looking at managing a team, and they're trying to figure out what it exactly means, like what kind of work, how
mhm.
different is it from what they usually do as a senior salesperson or a AE or whatever they were before
Mhm.
becoming a manager. So, what does it mean to manage a sales team? That's the question.
Okay, and this is basic stuff. It could be very different definitions depending upon the company or the stage of the company as well. But on a very generic level, managing a sales team is about hiring, training, and motivating your sales team members primarily, and forecasting sales, setting up sales goals, developing effective strategies for managing leads or increasing sales. Or even it could be also setting up processes. If it's a very newish kind of a sales team, it could be about just setting up new processes and benchmarking of those of the success criteria for those processes, or having an effective sales management process overall in terms of achieving the goals that the organization wants to achieve in terms of revenue as well. But I mean, just to give a very quick snapshot of what exactly it meant for me when I started this role as well back in the day. So it meant basically to identify the right people and basically setting up that team. Because I have been part of startups at early stage startups, so it meant hiring that initial stuff when I was not even enough experience to kind of do kind of manage a team. I had to hire the right people, and identifying those right people is important. We have discussed more about how to hire people and all, but yeah, I'll not go into the details of that. But primarily, this role is managing a sales team is about setting goals for the team, formulating a sales management strategy, executing that strategy, and evaluating and reporting the results on that strategy. So these are the four. If I have to sum it up in 4 points, these are the four things I would like to sum it up. What is managing a sales team about?
I absolutely agree, right? That's what I learned over the 4 5 years I ran a sales team along with marketing. But one thing that I think you missed was grievance redressal, I'll tell you what I mean by that, right?
Mhm.
I remember during my sales career, one of the major things that I was part of, apart from managing, helping the sales force, was sales team interacted with a bunch of external folks, right? Customers. Between the two sales, people might talk to each other, an AE or and a SDR might talk to each other, and then there is CS team that they hand over the lead to. Then there is
Mhm.
support team. There might be a POC running, and there's a support team who's taking care of the customer at the back end for some
Mhm.
other support queries which we can't handle, right? So there were a lot of how would I say, issues that popped up. A customer might, let's say, a CS guy would say, "Hey, did you promise X to the customer?" Right, and then you have to prove, "Hey, no, I did not promise." You have to look at the record, and then there is issue between when, especially in inbound, when there are two sales folks. Sometimes the customer comes and registers twice, and the
Mhm.
system is built in such a way that he might use a different email, and now he's talking to two different sales folks, and it's at the juncture of closing
So
now.
managing that conflict is
Yeah,
important, of course.
correct.
Yes.
That's one thing, and the same conflict happens with CS, right? CS says, "Hey, you did a bad sale."
Yeah.
And then there is marketing which says, "Hey, I gave you so many MQLs,
Mhm.
and none of them converted to SQLs, or only 10% converted to SQLs. Did you even call them? I don't see any notes." Like,
Yeah.
basically kind of helping them out there. So
Mhm.
I think that's one of the reasons, that things that happens at
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
once a week, or and once a month at least, right? So
Yeah, so these are a lot of these are taken care of in one-to-one meetings as well. Some at least at the personal level, and then you have team meetings where you solve this. And one thing which I definitely would want to point out is setting up the right processes. So when you have these processes well defined, what is a qualified lead, or how when should a customer success manager or customer CSM comes into a picture in a deal? When you have these steps very clearly defined, there will be still some disputes or some conflict in terms of misalignment or something. But if you have these things clearly defined when you set up the sales process, and then there are chances that everybody knows their limit in terms of what they're trying to push, or I mean, what is fair to everyone, right? So when you have said that, okay, we want a qualified lead has this criteria, or a CSM comes in only when the first check comes in from the customer, or when a particular deal, this is the kind of deals that this particular CSM is going to handle. So when you have set up these frameworks or processes around your sales process, it definitely helps reduce these conflicts. But yeah, there'll be one or two cases, or I mean, you want to reduce the number of cases. There'll still be one or two cases, or more than that, in fact, sometimes, depending upon the sales team size. But yeah, I think setting up these processes definitely is going to be helpful.
absolutely makes sense, right? As we grow,
Yeah,
processes are important. That's the reason processes are important, right?
correct.
And so the next question is actually very connected to this, right?
Mhm.
So somebody asked, how can I be an effective sales team manager, right?
Mhm.
Now, effective, of course, can be sales, but I think there is more to it than just achieving your sales targets. So,
Mhm.
one of the things that I would love you to touch upon is basically, attrition, like people leaving sales team and you hiring. So
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
and of course the targets itself. So how question is, how can I be an effective sales team manager?
So there are two sides to this. Okay, there is one thing is managing the numbers. So managing the numbers is going to get you those brownie points. Or basically, that is what you are expected to do as a sales team, right? But that is not going to help you retain a team, or help the team overperform, or help your team members stay motivated, right? So there are two angles. One is the numbers angle, which is the revenue. The other is the people management side of things, where you are managing people and managing their expectations as well, right? So everybody has their expectations why they are into sales, right? So I kind of put it in different buckets, but yeah, these are the two buckets broadly, I would say. Is being I mean, if you understand these two aspects of how to manage a sales team, you're half more than half the job is done. So, but if you have to pinpoint into like bullet points, which let's say a takeaways, I mean, what you would want to kind of, what I would have want to learn, maybe somebody advised me when I kind of was getting into this role, is being able to communicate with the team. And when I say communication, not just communicate like what you want to communicate, but also listen to the team. So that's equally important. And then finding the best people for that particular job or territory, or let's say it's a sales role. What kind of sales role is it? Is it large enterprise sales, medium enterprise, SMB sales, and enable them for success? So identifying the right people, hiring them, of course, is, I mean, as a manager, you need to understand that you have to move on from the stage where you were yourself selling. You might still jump into sales calls and help the sales reps do the sales or kind of close the deal, but you have to understand or make that clear demarcation in terms of that your role is more about managing people and helping your team to succeed rather than you succeeding in closing a deal. So that's where you have to identify the best people for the job and enable them for success, which means you also need to get into coaching and sales enablement in terms of helping them ramp up with your product, or it could be about just a sales process that you have defined for yourself. And then related to this, defining the process and measuring the performance of the team. And then overall, end of the day, keeping a track of leading indicators and always thinking ahead. So if you see all the points that I mentioned, there is nowhere a number, revenue number that focusing on the revenue as a number is as marked here, right? So which means if you follow these 3-4 steps, you are bound to achieve your numbers. Which means numbers are more like a result rather than basically the only thing that you should be focusing on. It should not be the only thing you should be focusing on. If you have your priorities right, then I'm sure you'll be able to achieve the revenue numbers as well.
Of course, I mean, what a lot of us tend to forget is the people that we are working with are people, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, pressurizing or this carrot and stick formula doesn't work always, right? So you have to build that culture out in your sales team, which looks at succeeding, and to do that, pressure does not work, right? So here's a question that somebody asked, right?
Mhm.
Do sales managers make a lot of money? Now, I'm pretty sure this is a valid question, considering as a sales guy, I could make a lot of money. I could, the more I sold, the more incentive I got, and made a lot of money. At one point, I used to live from my incentive and save all my salary, right? That was how it went. Now,
Mhm.
valid question: do sales managers make a lot of money?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. To be to be honest, like actually, I mean, they do make money, their share of money, but it's definitely not as high as a successfully well performing AE makes. AE definitely makes more money in terms of pure dollars. Okay, so probably on an average, even 30 to 40% higher than a sales manager would make, right? So if you just think in terms of sports, like AE is basically in a quarterback position in like baseball language, and they are plain and simple the guys who are making it happen. So it's hands down not account executives who make more money, but managers have their share of what they make. And I would say no, it's the perception is incorrect that sales managers make a lot of money. Yeah, so I've seen A's who have been in IC roles or who have been A's for years, like decades actually. And that's because they don't want to get into a manager role, because they see the higher they make more money when they are in an IC or AE role rather than a manager's role.
So it makes sense, right? Okay. So I mean, that's the thing of it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
again, depends upon the person. Like, oh, are you
Absolutely.
right? I mean, are
Yeah.
you looking at an IC role? Are you comfortable with that? Are you good at it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it's a stage or what stage you are at, what's your mindset is, and I mean, it's also about how you want to your career to progress as well, right? Some people, after a point of time, they think they can make more impact as a manager. Why not? Some people think they are more impactful when they are in a individual contributor role. Good for them. Yeah.
so this is the next question I want to ask, right? So somebody asked is what is something that I never understood, because so the question is basically, what are the most effective sales team management techniques, right?
Mhm.
The reason I say I don't understand this is because I don't believe that any kind of technique in a silo would work. You need a combination of multiple things, sometimes working simultaneously to actually have a good team running, which meets its targets, and is comfortable working on those targets, even if it's they are pushed, they deliver, right? So you need a
Yeah.
combination of those things. So
Yeah, it's a
I'm not really sure
combination
if
of
there is a
factors.
so
There's no,
according to you,
yeah, so there's no straight formula as such. Sorry to
yeah,
cut you, but yeah,
yeah.
just
So,
finish.
the question was, according to you,
Mhm,
if you had to, list down a couple of two or three techniques, as they
mhm,
call it, like what would that be to basically run an effective sales team? When I say effective, basically hits their targets and is kind of happy
mhm,
doing
mhm.
that, right? So, uh, what would be that?
So broadly, if you want to define this, it depends upon the management techniques or styles that you have. So either, I mean, you could have a style which is kind of directing. You're directing people to different things, or you are selling yourself as well, or basically complementing the sales of the your team members. You are participating in it and you are delegating it. So when you are depending upon the four styles so that you have in terms of management, uh, at the same time, you don't want to be too intrusive, right? Or micromanaging things, because you want your team to enable, and maybe in a few years, a few quarters, probably you want somebody from your team to itself replace you, and you move on to maybe another role, right? Higher up in the management, probably. So you're always kind of prepping up people for that as well, and identifying people for those roles. So broadly speaking, I would say, I mean, defining individual and team goals. If you have to take it as a, I mean, you have to do that pretty straightforward. Know your team, understand the aspirations, and more importantly, their differences. Providing one-to-one coaching. Coaching is broadly, it's a very broad term, right? But when you are as a manager, one of your key responsibilities is also to coach your team, right? Or provide feedback to your team. So coaching is one part of it, and then providing constructive feedback to the team and encouraging them to learn from their mistakes or from others' mistakes as well in the team. So these are broadly, I would say, the four, I mean, different techniques. So there is no formula to it, I would say, but it's very situational kind of a thing, depending upon what stage, what kind of deals, what kind of companies you're targeting, what kind of territories you're targeting. So it's very broadly. These are the four 5 points I would kind of suggest.
I mean, that's where the complication arises, right?
Mhm.
Because we have so many folks targeting different aspects of the business, right? You might have a team
Yeah.
of, let's say, 10 people, two people targeting East, or two people targeting West, two people targeting Europe, right? So that basic target market now or person might be the same, the persona might be the same, but the market they are in, the industry they are in, has different type of effect on the sales that you do, right?
Mhm.
So that also means that because there are so many variables in selling, as a manager, you need to figure out how do I cater to those variables, and it is not possible if you are rigid, right? If you're rigid
Right.
with, hey, these are my
Absolutely.
techniques. So here's a connected question, right? uh,
Mhm.
Now we understand, sometimes, with any salesperson there's always a downtime, right? They
Mhm.
might do good for years, and then there comes the 6 months where they're really down, right? And
Yeah.
or I've seen sales folks who like hit 200% of their targets, and next month they're
Mhm.
hitting 15%, 20%, 30%, and then the month next they're again doing 100%. Of course, because their pipeline, their processes are not properly followed. But what happens with that is there's a low motivation period that comes up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Take the current environment for instance, right? A
Right.
lot of, like, until about, let's say, 1 or 2 years ago, people were open to, actually trying out new products, new tools, and it was actually much easier to sell
Mhm.
than when compared to today, right? Now today everybody is pessimistic, right? They would want to see if there is an ROI, and only then actually invest. So that means the job of a sales guy has become tougher. So
Mhm.
that means some months would be really bad and they won't hit sales, right? So here's the question. The question is basically, how do I motivate and engage my sales team consistently, right? Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
how do we do that? Like, what are the methods that you used for this?
Yeah, everybody needs motivation, even sales managers. So one, I mean, true way to kind of motivate somebody. So why would I be even motivated when you try to give me a pep talk, let's say, or talk to me about what went right or what went wrong, mostly when you're trying to motivate sales reps, right? So the first step is building that trust with that, let's say, individual. Okay, so I'm taking more like, you can't be motivated. Of course, you can, a room full of sales reps, you can go ahead and give a good pep talk or self. I mean, that is always there. But when you're trying to motivate, try to connect on a personal level. Okay. So when you connect on a personal level, and they'll connect with you on a personal level only when they trust you, right? So building trust is actually the true secret to motivating sales team. So no sales, and you might have all the sales contests, gamification, or you can deliver a motivated. I mean, you can deliver a speech, but unless you build that trust, they'll not share. So what has been going on, let's say, is, as you said, like, there are a lot of challenges in the current business environment, right? So so you have to actually understand what is troubling them, or why are they not performing to the top level. So this is not about just understanding why one sales rep is underperforming, but also about what is going on in the market. Might be the market is not receptive to your solution or product or service that you're trying to sell, right? So which means there is some corrective action. There has to be a revamp of your product or service, or maybe there's another way to pitch that or something, right? So you need to learn from that, and they'll tell you these facts or these what they are facing in the market only when they trust you, right? Otherwise they'll try to cover up, maybe. So in very, like, bullet points, if you have to kind of motivate your sales team, build trust. Everybody is unique, so what matters to one individual might not matter to the rest of the team, and vice versa. So for somebody it's money, somebody for someone it's career mobility, for someone it's recognition, for someone it's purpose. So you have to identify what makes sense for each one of your sales reps in your team, right? And then probably give that motivation, or try to understand the basic problem that is, I mean, not kind of pushing them to uh, perform at the top level. So, I mean, there are seven broadly ideas that I used to kind of fall back on, which is around building trust, as I said, to start with. Get in the trenches, which means getting on sales calls, let's say, not just to micromanage, but let them lead the sales call, but be there on the sales call just to give them that confidence that, hey, I'm here. If you miss something, if I'm just here to support you. Okay, I'm not here to take your deal away, right? I'm here to support you. Set goals and do celebrate well when they are accomplished. If you give a number to be achieved in a particular day, and set small targets, so that achievable targets to start with, and then so push them to achieve those targets and celebrate them. Maybe in a team meeting, have a round of give them a round of caps, basically appreciating them, how they achieved the number this week or this particular day. Optimize your leadership style based on, as I said, depending upon what kind of people you're dealing with. Offer opportunities for growth and development, because for some guys, let's say somebody who's already a star performer, he might not be motivated by small things, right? Let's say you give him some incentive or a gift or something. He's looking to achieve maybe 200% of the target, right? So your incentive or commission structure compensation structure should be accordingly for those sales reps. Or offer financial incentives. For some people, and for everyone, financial incentives do matter, but don't make it a one single point of agenda in terms of driving the sales team or motivating the sales team. And always say thank you for whenever your team achieves a target. It's always, I mean, it's on everyone to achieve the target or number, but it's always good to say thank you to your entire team. So these are 6-7 things I would say kind of makes or helps build trust and motivate your sales team. So that was the longest answer, but I hope that was answered what you wanted to kind of know.
Absolutely. So, okay, so I understand from trust, right? The logical next question would be like, how do you build trust? I understand the trenches part of it. Like, if you're there, if they've seen you work and they know what you're talking about, there's a certain respect that is gained because of it as a fellow salesperson. But what else can you do to actually, build that trust? Do you have?
Yeah, you can't build trust in 1 week or one day, right? So it's a process. So when I say build trust, basically helping them kind of so it's more about conversation or communicating, both mutual communication channel, where let's say it could be, if you're using some tools, it could be through those tools, or it could be just having these weekly one-to-one conversations in terms of what is troubling them, what are the challenges they are facing. So if you are able to gauge that person in terms of what are the incentives to kind of be in sales to start with, very basic. Why are you even in sales? I mean, for somebody it could be just about money, okay, or somebody it could be just that they want to be seen, they want to make an impact in the organization, right? Of course, everybody is there for certain financial incentives, but there are different reasons why people are in sales, right? They want to make an impact. They want to maybe start a career in sales. They want to do their own startup or whatever the reason may be, right? So you have to, if you are able to understand that their aspirations, probably that is where you start understanding what kind of incentives would work for them, right? And then once you provide that incentive, you are able to build that trust. And then, of course, as you said, mentioned correctly, in resolving those conflicts or defending your team in front of the organization, right? So this is where you take that leadership role in terms of building that trust. So when your team knows that our sales manager would be there to defend us if we fall back on numbers or whatever, like, I mean, you can't be in a hire and fire kind of policy that, okay, one guy doesn't perform, fire it, like, and then hire another guy and then train them, take another 6 months. Probably everybody has a bad day. So you have to take it that way. No matter it's a sportsman or a salesman or any role, everybody has a bad day, and you just consider that and give them a chance and move on. So when you give them that opportunity to kind of come back and re-achieve those numbers or perform, you have that trust basically.
I mean, hire and fire is basically, I've seen a lot of startups and even mid-sized companies do it. What they fail to understand is, okay, you hired somebody, he's going to take 2 months to ramp up, and then you're going to fire them, then you're going to hire somebody else who's going to take 2 months to ramp up.
Another 2 months, yeah.
So basically, by the time you find somebody who's very good, it's already 6 months
No,
and
it
you have no
doesn't
sales.
work.
Yeah.
At least I haven't seen, and it's builds. It's a very builds a very bad culture as well overall.
Yeah. Hire good, understand the person, say, hey, I think worst things people have done, the reason why this happens is they're not very upfront on what the job entails, right?
Right.
So it's all those how do I say, legal jargon that nobody understands. If you look at JD, you'll never understand, most JDs at least, you'll never understand what the job is about, right? There'll be like one line which basically says you have to sell. Rest of it would be like a lot of mumbo jumbo that nobody understands, and and it's fair that most people who apply don't even read it, right?
Yeah, they just see a
So
role and they apply.
exactly. So very rarely have I seen uh, people in their JDs being very upfront about it. And when they are upfront about it, the number of people who apply is still up. But one or two questions with them are just a simple email, and it's very easy to filter out folks who are not interested, who might not be right fit, right?
Yeah,
So that's I think that's where a lot of us lack, and I think there's a huge opportunity for these hiring folks, especially in engineering and in sales, that they can look for. I mean, we should talk about like, sales for me was, I always wanted to be in marketing, but I went into sales because that was the easiest job I got. Right? It took me 15 minutes of conversation. I could speak in English, and that's why they hired me.
Yeah.
That's what the criteria was. And people don't understand sales. Like, it might look easy, but if you want to be an effective salesperson, there are certain things that you need, right? And that needs to be evaluated. If you don't evaluate that, hire and fire is all that you're going to do.
Yeah, I
So,
try to discourage actually people, especially if they are in their first or second jobs. I try to discourage them to get into sales. And then if they come back with their valid reasons why they want to get into sales, then I know that, okay, they have an incentive to get into sales and they will be here for a while.
I did the same thing. I used to do something called a scare tactic, and I would say, the first thing I would do is I would describe the job and make it sound so hard that if they haven't made their mind, they'll say, okay, this is not something I want to do. They won't come back to me, right? So after the first call, so that actually works, and I've met really good sales folks like that, and who stick around, who push
No, it
through.
works, definitely works.
Yes. Okay. So okay, next question. I'll just go to the next question. Okay. So
Yeah, sure.
uh, this question, right, it sounds simple, right? How can I track and measure the success of my sales team, right? Sales team is a combination of your sales folks, right? So I wanted to just, have the answer in two parts. The first part is like for new sales folks versus for veteran sales folks. When I say veteran, within the team, they are veteran. They've been there for let's just 6, 7 months or 1 year or whatever the sales cycle is. Sales cycle X 1.5 time they've been in the system, so they are veterans, right? A new person takes some time to
Yeah.
actually grow and make sales, so they cannot be judged on the same success metrics. So my question to you, like, how would you say, okay, this person is successful when this person is a new salesperson versus when this person is a veteran salesperson within the team? And if there is a between that, there might be a transition phase. Within that transition phase, if there's a different metric, please feel free to add on that.
So overall, I mean, it's a proven fact, right? What you can't, if you can't measure something, you can't manage anything, right? So in sales, it's more accurate than ever. I mean, for all roles, of course, but yeah, sales it's more than anything else, right? So, I mean, you demarcated the question into two types of roles: a new sales rep or an experienced sales rep. I would take it that way. So I mean, see, it's same for everyone, to be honest. Like that's how you can't function in a way that you have a different set of rules. The numbers also, you can't have different set of numbers just because one guy has been in the organization for 2 years. Of course, it depends upon what kind of territories, what kind of I mean experience there. I mean, it also depends on the pay scale as well to an extent, right? But broadly speaking, the most important metrics that matter for a sales organization or a sales team, it collectively is that total revenue number. Okay. Now, there are a lot of other factors into it, like average revenue, market penetration, win rate, year-over-year growth, or lifetime value, and so on. But if you have to just take one number, so there are two aspects again. So you're looking at the effort side of things, and you're looking at the achievement side of things. Okay. So in terms of effort, of course, okay, you have certain criteria, okay, that on maximum, let's say you have to make at least these many call outs, or you have to send these many emails, but you should not restrict that incentive or whatever, like your performance bonus, or let's say even if when you're evaluating a sales rep, how they are doing, they might not, one sales rep, for example, in my experience, he was new to the organization. He did not close any deal for 3-4 months. Okay. But he had a good pipeline. So there was no way I could fire him. Although there was some pressure internally in terms of what is happening and all those things. But we couldn't fire him just because he had done what was asked of him. Right. And in the fourth month, he closed 5 deals. So that's how it works, right? As long as you have that pipeline, I can see that predictability in terms of pipeline. I would say that sales rep is performing well. At the same time, when you're looking at experienced sales rep, probably let's say experienced sales rep is handling larger deal sizes, where the sales cycle might be 6 to 9 months, or sometimes even longer, right? So I would not discard the fact that that guy would be handling only 3 deals or 5 deals in the pipeline, but he has a pipeline of 1 million, right? What would I do then? I would not say that just because he's not closed any deals this quarter, he is not performing well, right? So one is the performance as in the numbers metrics. One is the activity metrics. So I would rate on both factors when I'm rating or when I'm basically evaluating a salesperson. How are the activities going on? Are they doing those activities diligently? Are they sending emails? Are they getting responses? So if they're getting responses, then are they able to book demos? And same for revenue metrics. Revenue metrics is very clear to understand, right? You see that, okay, these deals have closed. But I would look at also activities, and sales is not just about closing deals, it's also about building a pipeline. So going up market, so there are again different criteria for what would comprise of how a sales rep should be kind of evaluated as well. Now, you asked about measuring the success of a sales team. I would look at what stage the company or organization is at as well. If you're trying to go up market, let's say if you're aiming for the enterprise market, you'll want to see your average deal size growing, right? You want to see your average revenue per unit increasing, which signifies larger deals from larger customers, right? And you'd look at what the sales rep has achieved in terms of goals. Are they meeting the quota in terms of not just numbers, but also in terms of the activities they are supposed to perform? So you might want to focus on activity metrics and performance indicators, not the eventual number, the revenue number, such as the performance indicators could be emails sent, phone calls made, meetings booked, right? And the revenue number is, of course, the performance indicator overall as well. And if you're looking to, let's say, scaling sales teams or selling to SME markets, your goal is to scale your business in terms of how many accounts you have reached out, let's say, for example. So it's a high velocity sales, right? So you're looking at maybe closing every month, closing 3 deals or 4 deals. Let's, but the same might not apply to an experienced sales rep who's trying to close maybe 1 deal a quarter. Okay. So broadly, it's very different for everyone, but there are 2 indicators: performance indicators and like revenue metrics and activity indicators.
Got it. Got it. So, okay, now let's assume, right? Somebody is not performing well, right? Across activities, across numbers. And there's this part where you spoke about coaching, right? And before that, right? You mentioned something about being predictable. One of my mentors used to say this really, nuance, not nuance, I would say, uh, it applies to this specific role, right? He used to say, sales folks are paid to be predictable,
Mm.
right? So that's
Right.
why you get paid. So because nothing else in business can be predicted, markets cannot be predicted. But if your sales team has that predictability ingrained into it, you know what you can expect from your team, then everything else would fall into place. What he used to say. That applies over the period of last 10 years. I worked with multiple sales teams, uh,
Mhm.
both as an external marketing guy, as part of the sales team
Mhm.
itself. This has true, right?
Mhm.
If the pipeline is kind of predictability, right? It is like allowing you to know what kind of revenue you can get in X months down the line, right? So
Yeah.
that's another thing. But yeah, so just want to add that, right? But yeah, so I was talking about activities, right? You were talking about activities. We were talking about the numbers that they would achieve. Now,
Mhm.
let's assume somebody is not able to achieve, and we are going into coaching that specific person, right? Uh,
Mhm.
what I've seen as a salesperson, or I've seen as external party, is that these coaching sessions or these feedback sessions, right, becomes, hey, this is what you did wrong sessions,
Mhm.
right? You did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, and in most cases, salesperson gets this feedback, and instead of being motivated, they get demotivated when they come out of the room, right? And that speeds the
Mhm.
purpose of giving feedback. Feedback is supposed to
Correct.
help them improve, right? So how would you give a feedback, and in a corporate jargon like performance evaluations, right? How do you give a performance evaluation so that it does
Mhm.
not come out so negative that the person gets demotivated, right? So like, what is your process of giving feedback and performance evaluation to a sales team?
Again, let's go back to the first question. When we define process, what are we measuring? So I would start there itself. So in terms of being able to provide feedback in terms of our performance evaluations, I would say setting that standard for measuring sales performance needs to be very, very specific, measurable, and attainable. So it should not be some unrealistic number just because you have to achieve that number, right? And it should be very time specific as well. When I say specific, not just specific in terms of what number needs to be achieved, but you also have to be, what is the time frame for achieving that number. So if you have these things in place, then you are basically accurately measuring them for their like performance or in terms of attainment on those numbers. So your metrics should also reflect what your company needs to increase for increasing the revenue as well, which is which kind of leads us to again, building that trust. So when you're sharing feedback, if somebody just random shares a feedback and say that you did not do this well, and as you said, if the conversation goes in that direction, then it's a waste, basically waste of time for everyone, and it demotivates instead of motivating the people. So that's why I said very, very constructive feedback, not just pointing out the mistakes, but also telling them what they could have done better or how they could have done better. So this is where you learn from each other as well, right? And there are definitely tools available for that. But yeah, on a very minute level, it's about building that trust and then sharing that feedback, constructive feedback, uh, and being able to establish that system for consistent feedback. So one day suddenly you decide that, okay, I want to understand what is going wrong. That would not work, right? So you have to share this feedback consistently. That could be a weekly one-to-one call or a monthly call, or it could be even a team call where you're reviewing calls. Let's say the top, the deals that you close or deals that was lost as well. Or and then basically equipping employees to provide their own feedback as well. So it's not about just one-way communication. It's both ways communication. So you're not just passing on feedback, but also asking sales reps to evaluate their own calls in some sense, or asking for feedback from them as well, in terms of how you as a manager can help them improve. So, and another important aspect I have also seen is that because it's top down mostly when feedback is being shared, uh, employees or sales reps don't know how to receive feedback. So when you are actually setting up these processes, or maybe at this, when when you are onboarding a sales rep, you need to also help or coach employees how to receive feedback. Okay? And everybody is not good at it, right? So and you have to set a certain process around that. Okay, this is what we expect when we share this feedback, or this is how you should be improving, and these are the ways we can help you improve within the organization, right? So broadly, as I said, like these are the 4 or 5 points I would kind of fall back on. So giving and receiving productive feedback is the key to personal and professional development for your sales reps. Feedback culture, and then help not just one-way communication, but two-ways communication, where you're not just sharing feedback, but also taking feedback from them in terms of your role, but of course also in on their how they are performing. Sales teams, I mean, do of course invest a lot in kind of coaching, but it is more about people to people relationships that matter here.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Cool. So okay, now there's people to people relationships. There is issues that happen, the grievances that happen with other teams. There are other problems. As sales manager, you take care of a bunch of different stuff, right? But so here's this question, which basically asking us to summarize what are the major problems that one would face while managing a sales team. In your experience, like what would the what would be the most common problems that a new sales manager or a person who's becoming a new sales manager should be ready for, or should be expecting when they go into managing a sales team?
Sure. So this is some advice definitely I would also have, it would have helped me a lot as well. And I learned it later from some of my managers and some of my colleagues as well. So how it works like, so one fine day, maybe you have been an individual sales contributor, you have done well, you have been promoted, and you are offered the role as a sales manager. So suddenly what happens is your role changes from an individual performer to a manager, and you are no longer just in sales. Now you're more like in a people business, right? You're managing people, their expectations, their progress. So suddenly you feel pressure in terms of achieving those salary numbers, which was more like as an individual, but you're trying to basically pass on that pressure to the rest of the team, which is where a lot of mistakes happen, right? Where you start counting people, you're just counting numbers and people, you're matching that. So one of the major mistakes or major challenges that happens in managing a sales team is focusing too much on the revenue number. And it becomes the only metric that you're trying to follow, right? So of course that should always be in the back of your mind, but you have to see what challenges your team is facing. The second challenge I see is coaching. Coaching is considered as time consuming, I mean, why should I be spending 1 hour with one sales rep when I'm managing a 10 people sales team? So you have to understand that only when you are uh, sitting with your team members, not just you are helping them learn or helping them improve, but you are also learning in the process, right? What mistakes your best sales reps are doing, or what mistakes your top lowest performing sales reps are doing, and then helping them learn from the best sales reps. So, and the third challenge, which comes again, it's about you have sales managers fail to understand that it's about managing specific behaviors. So, as I said, there are different kind of performers in a sales team. Let's say if you there could be star performers who are overachieving the numbers. There could be people who are kind of in between, who are consistent performers. They're not overachieving, they're not underachieving, they're somewhere in between, and there are the bottom performers. So you have to manage specific behaviors of these three kinds of people. And the fourth challenge I see is hard to hire great reps, where you make mistakes in the hiring process. So somebody who's not aligned to your sales process or not aligned to how your sales team is or the culture of sales team, that bad fit kind of doesn't work in the long run. So these are 3 4 challenges I see. So the skill set required for managing all of this is basically having understanding your team and understanding aligning with the team in terms of what they want to achieve, and at every individual, not just at the team level, but also at the individual level. Also, I see one. I mean, just to add to this, uh, aligning with the marketing team is often ignored. Now, if you don't not aligning with your marketing team in the right manner, your results will, your revenue numbers will definitely be impacted. So that's another way where sales team managers need to align with their marketing department, which is often ignored as well.
So, short of fist fight and cuss words, like we used to have me when I was in sales team, I used to fight with marketing, and we just didn't punch each other. But apart from that, everything happened there. So yeah, that's why I laughed at the aligning thing. It's like it sounds very easy, right? Hey, there are two teams, let's talk and we align. Doesn't work that way, right? As a sales manager, you want to protect your team and you say, hey, they won't lie to you. And but as a marketing manager, she's also protecting her team, or he's also protecting the team. They won't lie to you, right? Now, when I'm at the marketing side of things, I understand, right? Uh, hey, what we think is the right type, let's say lead, right type of lead might not be the right type of lead for sales. So it's important that we align in terms of targeting a bunch of different things. I'm going into like too deep here, but alignment starts at customer, right? So if sales and marketing aligns on the type of customer they want to go in, and from there it can be built on, right? So sounds very easy, very hard to implement, especially if there's a big team.
So it's often ignored, as I said, right? That's why I said that way.
Cool. Okay. Okay. Let's go back a little bit, right? Let's assume you are hiring a sales manager, right?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure. So the question they're asking is, what are the essential qualities of a successful sales team manager? I'm pretty sure this is basically a new sales guy or a struggling sales manager typing in and figuring out if they have the quality or not. Because I remember doing it on Google. Hey, do I have, what are the qualities of good sales manager, and check if I have those qualities or not. But so let's answer it. Right? According to you, what are the essential qualities of a successful sales team manager?
I mean, there's lot to it, but yeah. So since you're managing people, one of the most important skills is active listening skills, being able to coach, uh, being able to understand the team's core job, like what is the core job of the team in terms of what you're trying to achieve as a team. But there are a lot more other factors. So these are the three I take into consideration. Now, I mean, generally, managing a sales team or basically hiring a sales manager is, are they open to listening? Because most of the time you'll be listening to your sales reps, and better when you're listening actually, right? And then are they adaptable? Like, can they adapt to different team individuals, right? Because every individual would be different in the team. As I said, some guys are performing right up there at the top. some guys are not performing, some guys are okay, happy with what they are achieving. So there's this tendency in sales, I mean, especially at individual sales level, sales reps, is that you want to save deals for the next quarter, right? Of course, that's good because you are trying to meet your quarter's numbers for every quarter. But why not make them push for that deal in this quarter and incentivize them for that, right? So it's about understanding their aspirations as well, and kind of aligning with that. So
Especially
yeah,
the last week.
yeah, last week, right?
Last week.
So I mean, as long as you're showing positivity, helping motivate others, focused on the end goal, and have a certain discipline, of course, and devoted to kind of helping others succeed. So it's more about your team succeeding, right? You're helping every individual, every sales rep in your team succeed. So it's not about you succeeding, but and if they succeed, even your, let's say, 70% of your 75% of your team is succeeding, you succeed as a manager, anyways, right? So those 25% who are, let's say, bottom performers, they will not reflect on your team as overall, right? Because there will be, of course, top 75% of the team is still performing, which would means you will achieve your numbers anyways.
Makes sense.
So these are the few factors I would say: listening skills, adaptability, able to coach, able to show positivity, motivate others. Yeah.
One last question, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. I mean, we are already over the time limit, but we spoke about the most common challenges, right? But
Mhm.
like in any other job, there's always something called the big no-nos, right? Never do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So I think this question is, is associated or pertains to that. What are the biggest mistakes to avoid when managing a sales team?
Yeah, most common mistake, especially when most sales managers get promoted from an AE role where they perform very well to a manager role. So you keep selling, right? So you always have, because you're so good at sales, that's why you've been promoted, and you keep selling. You think that, okay, this is how you're going to make that number and you're going to make an impact. But that's the wrong way to do it. Here you have to enable your team to sell rather than you selling. You might jump into deals here and there to help them close it, but stop selling. So, and then the second big mistake is uh, treating your reports like your friends rather than your team, basically. That's another aspect which a lot of people miss, because you have been like buddy buddies working with your entire team. As a manager, you have to sometimes you have to maintain the distance to be equal or fair to everyone, because otherwise the biases come into play, right? So you have to maintain that, because mostly you have been promoted with it from within the team, that same team maybe, right? And then you fix problems instead of coaching people.
Hmm.
The third big mistake a lot of sales managers do. So you're trying to, let's say a sales rep is making the same mistake again and again. So you're trying to fix that problem instead of making that sales rep sit with you, or maybe kind of budding them on a call, and trying to, let's say, objection they have not been handling well properly, right? I mean, let's take one instance for that matter. So instead of helping answering that objection yourself, getting on a call and answering that objection, probably it better to how coach them to how to do that, right? So that's one another mistake a lot of sales managers do. Talking too much, yes, that's always there. Both as a sales rep and as a manager, you have to listen to your team, and as a sales rep you have to listen to your customers. Then a lot of times it also is about kind of sales management in terms of managing a sales process as well. But I would say that is something which you would expect a sales manager to do it. But broadly, four or five mistakes, what I reiterated right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, selling yourself is it's a big no-no in the sense, if you're selling yourself, you're going to, because your money or your incentives are dependent on this. As a sales manager, you will still work as an AE and you will concentrate more on selling your getting to your numbers than
Mm.
that of the team, right? So I've always believed that if somebody's managing a team, they should have team goal as their individual goal rather than having an IC goal associated with it, right? Doesn't make any sense to you,
Right.
right? So that was the last question, and we've reached the end of it.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll talk about this. We'll talk more about more detailed aspects of sales in our
Mhm.
coming calls. I think we will have a bunch of different guests coming in, and we'll dig deep in some of these
Great.
topics that we discussed, right? And we'll talk about that. So thank you for the time, Sachin, and
Sure.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Always a
See you in
pleasure
the next
having
episode.
these conversations.